Hello, chef. Do you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, chef. Students are coming back from a quick
Break.
break.
Yeah.
Oh, everybody is writing. I don't know if you see it, but everybody is saying hello, welcome, thank you for being here. Nice
Yeah.
to see you. Thank you for your time. And that go on and on. We have 40 students today, chef.
Wow. Very good.
All around Latin America. Most of us, we are from Argentina, but we have people from other places too. So the students have prepared some question for you. Pablo, Vanessa, are you ready? ¿Están listos?
Yes,
Yes, we are.
Perfect. So they are going to ask you the questions, okay? I know we have limit time, but we are going to try to squeeze you, okay?
great.
Cuando estén
O-
listos, chicos.
Okay,
Pueden darle la bienvenida si quieren, como se manejan ustedes.
okay. So great, Jeff. Nice to meet you, and great thanks for joining us today here. It's a pleasure for us to have you. And well, we have prepared some questions, and the first would be, what would be your advice for someone who's just starting learning about Scrum with this certification? And to somebody who has already have some experience in Scrum, what would be like your most valuable piece of advice?
So you're asking about somebody who's starting and somebody who also has experience, right?
Exactly.
Two different. Okay. Well,
Scenarios. Right.
someone someone that's starting, they need to learn the basics uh, of how to implement Scrum, but they also need to learn how to make Scrum work really well. So there's some basic lean tooling that they need to start to learn about. There's some hyperproductive patterns, which are you teaching them the patterns, Paula?
Yes,
That
we
they
are.
understand. And most people today are not working with just one Scrum team. Almost all the time now, there are more than one Scrum team. So they need to start learning a little bit about how do you coordinate across multiple Scrum teams. And this is what is in Paula's course. Now, it turns out for people who are experienced for a while, uh, the industry data shows that for people that have been doing Scrum, 58% of them cannot deliver a working piece of product at the end of a sprint. And they're late, they're over budget, the customers are unhappy. So we get most of the work we do are with people already doing Scrum. But the management is saying, well, it's a little bit of an improvement, but not very much. It's certainly not meeting our expectations. So when you go in and look at what they're doing, for example, we audited 1,000 developers in Silicon Valley, and we found 300 of them were working on stuff that the business didn't want. Okay, so and I ever since I've been asking people, okay, in Scrum, do you think self-organization means you can work on whatever you want? Do you have any developers like that in your organization? And everybody I talk to has those developers. Well, this is really, really, really bad because what happened with that company with 1,000 developers, within 6 months they had to lay off 400 people, and the stock price went from 50 to 5. So a lot of people were put out of work because of these developers that are not doing Scrum. They're just doing what they're making everything up. Okay, so this is the biggest problem for people doing Scrum. They say they're doing it, but when you look at it, there's no increment at the end of a sprint. people are not trying to achieve the sprint goal. They're not delivering on the product goal, which we've now inserted to the Scrum Guide. So, for example, we have a case study for Scrum at Scale where one of the largest SAFe implementations in the world, 17,000 people, 26 release trains for Quicken Loans, which is the biggest loan provider in the United States. And for the most important release train, the front end of the system, they implemented Scrum at Scale on top of SAFe. And within 6 months, they were going 340% faster than the rest of the company. Okay? And yet SAFe had already doubled the productivity compared to Waterfall. So, for people that have been doing Scrum, you need to really pay attention to what Paula is telling you, because if you do this right, you're going to get twice the work in half the time, right? So for somebody starting out, we don't expect them to get twice the work in half the time. We expect them to do an implementation and then be improving. But for people that are doing Scrum, we expect them to get twice the work in half the time, or they're doing something wrong, okay? So for those who are new, you just need to try out what Paul is saying. For those who are experienced, you need to do exactly what she's telling you. Or the teams will not perform, right? So we try to make all this as simple as possible. In the training, I spent 10 years working with the global patterns movement to try to get a simple set of patterns that will enable a brand new Scrum Master to get twice the work in half the time. Maybe not in the first few sprints, but if they work on it within a year, they should be able to do that with a team.
Great, thank you. Next question.
Hello, Jeff, and thank you for joining us. Here we have another question. I think maybe it's a little big, but from your perspective, what was the most difficult decision you had to make, and what helped you take it?
What is the most difficult decision I had to make?
Yeah.
The basic thing, the big decision, and this is true for all of you, is you have to decide whether other people are crazy or you are crazy. Okay. Either those people are crazy or I'm crazy. You have to decide. There's no getting around it, because Agile is like totally different. And in the early years, people told me I was crazy. I remember I had lunch with some venture capitalists, and they said, this Scrum thing, it will never work. This is some kind of flower child, hippie California thing you're thinking of. Developers having fun? That will never happen. But I had to decide that these guys with the money were crazy. And I pursued it until now. I work with a venture capitalist, and they always come to me and ask me what they should do, because they know that I'm right and they're wrong, okay? But I had to decide that they were crazy to be able to take the market, right? You can't be fuzzy in your thinking. And that's very hard for people to, okay, I know we've been doing it this way for the last 50 years. I know that's the way the company works. I know that's the way the management thinks, but they are completely out of touch with reality. And we need to go in this different way. And then you need to test your thinking every step, test your thinking, make sure it's working. But when it's working, then you go back and you tell these people with the old mindset, the way you're thinking does not work. We're moving in a different direction. That is very hard for people. It's so easy to just go along, right?
Right, clear, thanks.
Vanessa? Vanessa,
There we go.
no te escuchan.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So our third question would be, what what do you suggest we do, or what shall we do with low or medium performance employees in an organization that is to be transformed to Agile?
Well, one of the things about Scrum is, I was working with one of our venture group has companies all over the world. One of them was in Australia, and they started up Scrum, and it was just one team in the Australian part of the company. And at the end of the first sprint, I was on the phone with the manager, the Scrum Master, and the product owner, and they said, at the end of the first sprint, we know that 2 people on the team got nothing done. We think they've been getting nothing done for the last year, but with Waterfall, we had no idea. But within Scrum, we know it's one sprint. Guys are doing nothing. What should we do? And I said, well, Scrum is designed for the team to help get people working together well. So don't do anything right away. Just make it clear in the retrospective that there is a problem, and then see if the team can solve it. So by the end of the very next sprint, one of the people on the team that had been a problem was contributing just like everyone else. The other one was still not doing anything, and the manager really took a look at it and figured out, I don't think this guy is ever going to be able to do anything, and he let him go from the company. But for most of the problems, the team will take care of a lot of the problems. If this same issue occurs with teams, what if teams are not doing anything? What if a team can't deliver? That happens as often as an individual. And most of the time, it's the way the system works around them, or the way they're coming into it. And if you have a company with lots of teams, there are usually some teams doing really well, and there'll be some teams that are struggling. So a little bit of coaching of the struggling team may fix it. If not, that team needs to be split up and put the people on the teams that are doing well, so they can learn how it works when it works well. And then the well-running teams will sort out, okay, is this just because that team over there wasn't working, or is this because this person has a problem? The team will sort it out. So most of the time, I try to get the team to sort out the problems. And if a Scrum Master has an issue, like, as a Scrum Master, I've been constantly trying to coach the team, coach this person, and particularly if this person is actually slowing down the team, that is a serious problem. If one person is reducing the total velocity of the entire team because they demotivate the team or they block the team, then that is much worse than one person not delivering something, right? That's a whole team not delivering because one person is blocking. And so a Scrum Master needs to work with management to get management to help fix that. That's not tolerable, that one person blocks a whole team. So, but most of the time, 95% of the time, the team will fix their own problems.
Great.
That was something that I didn't believe at first, and it was very clear after 1 year of working with teams, working with Scrum, that it was so easy that the people fix problems, right? They fix. If you tell them that there's a problem, they try to fix it right away. And
Right.
there are people that can't adjust or want adjust or don't like adjusting, but usually they want, because they want to be happy, they want to work well, and they want to be productive. So it's just to change the system and it's going to work. Exactly.
One of the remarkable things that we discovered when we implemented the happiness metric at Scrum Inc. was people actually like things to be easier. They like the work to be easier. They like it to be more fun. And as soon as they make it easier, more fun, velocity goes up. So you don't need to focus on velocity. You focus on making the work easy and make it more fun. And then naturally, it's just like sports. If you're feeling really good about playing soccer, you get out there on the field, and then you're feeling really good that day. You start to score, right? That's the way it works.
Pablo, you have one more question?
Yeah, yeah, Chef. Of course, happiness is a big thing within the team. Finally, what do you think? Is it possible, feasible, to implement Scrum in the public sector, which has a high level of bureaucracy?
Well, in the book, Scrum the Art of Doing Twice the Work in Half the Time, which has a Spanish edition, the
Yes.
first chapter is about the FBI. And the FBI was directed by Congress to create a system that could track terrorists after 9/11. And 10 years later, they still didn't have a system. They had one project that for 170 million, it failed. The second project was 450 million. They had spent 400 million and nothing worked. And the government accounting office shut the project down. So the leadership of the FBI said, we have to have a system to track terrorists. It's not optional. The Congress is going to replace all of us. So they hired an agile CIO and an agile CTO. They put 30 people in the basement of the FBI running Scrum. And a year later, for about $50 million, they had the system that runs the FBI today. So the difference in the public sector, I told you about Quicken Loans. They implemented Scrum at scale. They're going 340% faster. But in the FBI, they spent 570 million and got zero over 10 years. And then they spent 50 million and got everything in 1 year. How much faster is that?
A lot.
Infinitely faster.
Yeah.
So the opportunity in the governmental sector is much bigger than in the commercial sector because the dysfunction is so great in the public sector that it's very easy to get huge gains. And in fact, in Denmark, where they do a lot of Scrum in the government, they say every government project with Scrum is 10 to 20 times faster than traditional project management. They tell me that you guys in business, that's nothing. Government, we do much better.
Thank you so much.
Do you have time for one more question, Chef?
Sure, one more.
Okay. Okay. It still bugs me why the new guy doesn't have the word role. We still have Scrum Master, Product Owner, but we talk now about responsibilities and not roles. Why did you decide to do this change particularly?
Well, there are a number of things we changed in the guide to address specific problems we saw in Scrum. So Scrum is still the same as it was before, but the guide used a little different terminology. And in the case of roles, people were getting too wrapped up in who is the product owner, who is the Scrum Master, and not making them accountable for delivering. Okay, so like the biggest problem with Scrum Master, and we have managers are telling us all over the world, we're paying a lot of money to these Scrum Masters and they're just secretaries. They're taking notes and they're getting coffee. You pay them that much money because they're not improving team performance. They're not improving team happiness. They're not improving organizational performance, right? So we want people focused on what are they accountable for. Now, we just actually updated our slides for Scrum Master training and Scrum Skill training, and we in the 353 diagram, we have roles, right?
Yeah, we still have, right?
We tried putting accountabilities in there. It doesn't work too well. So we actually
No.
we left roles on the slide, but then we have the accountabilities, and then we say a role means that these accountabilities are what is the person that holds these accountabilities. So it's a refocusing the attention on what's really important.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, as usually, very, very clear everything, and we will continue teaching these students who are wonderful. They ask a lot of questions, which I love, and we are learning to do the real, true Scrum, right?
Right. Thanks for all your great work, Paula, in Argentina and all over South America. It's fantastic. Great to see you again.
Thank you very much. Have a nice weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Siempre me emociono, la verdad que cada vez que hablo con Jeff me emociono porque es increíble lo claro que es. Perdón, pero yo soy... es tan claro. Por eso le quise preguntar la última pregunta de tema de roles, porque claramente es tan importante que pasemos a entender que son responsabilidades y que no se trata de un puesto de